This Daf Yerushalmi Shabbos in the article Oz V'Har edition where Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph at the two dots, which is 5 lines from the top. Shimdan, which in the Vilna is on Yud Amud Beis. 1, 2, 3, 6 lines from the top. Okay, we're up to the next zera of the Yud Ches Davar, Shimdan, the oil of Akum. So Shimdan, Milas Shemen, who's the one who actually forbade the oil of non-Jews? Rabbi Yehuda Omar, Yehuda says Daniel asers Shemen. Daniel forbade the oil of non-Jews. It was before the Yud Ches Davar. As it says, plus Daniel, Daniel libo asher lo yisko el bepas bag hamelach. Daniel decided that he's not going to defile himself with the bread of the king. Uviyain mishtav, and as the Ada points out, mishtei mishtav sakosav daber echad mishtei yain beechad mishtei shemen. It says mishtav in plural, so it means the two modes of drink: the wine of the drink and the oil of the drink, or the drinking of wine and the drinking of oil. So he forbade the consumption of non-Jewish oil, the same as non-Jewish wine. Rabbi Yaakov Tanchum B'Rechi B'Shem B'Yachon B'Istam B'Shem B'Shubin Levi. Only Lahar Melech V'Ner Rogin Alav. Now there are two interesting, different divergent opinions what it means here. Literally means, of course, he used to go up to the mountain of the king, and they would be killed upon it. But Pnei Moshe says this is the reason for Takonim. Nema Asa Daniel Fisher Roesh. He saw Masakli Masatzman. Why did he forbid it? Because he saw the Jews endangering themselves. Lalos Har Melech to go up to the Har Melech Lakid Zaysim to collect olives. They were killed by their enemies. If you goes to level also, that's how you determined to forbid it. The Karmet Ada says, on the other hand, it's the reason why they were matir the takana. Why later on Shem Shakum was revoked, annulled. And it says, they would go up to Har Melech in order to get oil from somewhere which is permitted, in other words, to get their own oil, I guess. They were killed by their enemies when they went to get the oil, their own oil, as opposed to buy for the non-Jews. So therefore, they determined to be matir the gzera. So this shows always either the reason why they asked it or the reason why they were matir it. Umitiro, who annulled the gzera of Shem Shakum? Rebbe Beis Dino Tiro Shemen. Rebbe and his basin were matir oil, of course, in the Bavli, it's not Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, but Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, his grandson, who's Matir Shem Shalakum. B'shlosha Nikra is Nikra Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Rabosenu. 3 places Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is called Rabosenu. Begitin, Shemen, Uvasandal. In Gittin, where the he's called Rabosenu. There, the heter they gave, Rabosenu Tiru, the heter they gave was that was had to own it. Let's not own it. The Karmenia says the Tnan Zegitang little bus you come back to Beis Chodesh. Meis Tochi Beis Chodesh ain't no get for tiny little say Tiru. See the Karbudas Manash Star Mochiacholov. That if a person gives a get, if it does with his tonight, if I don't come back within 12 months, the get should be a get. And then he died within 12 months. That initially the psak was it's not about get because he died before the get was effective, and then they came. Nasi was matir and said no, it's manash that the get was a valid get from the time that it was written. That's the effective date. So that's one place where they're matir, and the other place of matir is shemen, which we spoke about, of course, and sandal, which is the somebody a woman who miscarries something in the form of a sandal. And initially she would, because the suffix was male female, you couldn't tell. So she would sit the days of Tuman Tara for both male and female. And I was saying either standard Suras Panim, Suras Panim Tor. Any fetus which does not have a facial countenance, there's no Yemei Tuman Tara. So so in that case, Rabbi Seinu, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was matter 3 things. If you go based in Shire, let them call them a based in which permits. Shko based in Shu Mavato Shloshim Nikra based in Sharia. So that's the case. They should give him a status of based in Sharia. Um, it sounds like that is a negative connotation. In any event, that should be the description which is given to the base of Yehuda Nasi. So the one answers why it's not called based in Sharia. In the Bible, there's a whole discussion with Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Zara where Rabbi Yehuda and the Sia is matir that he didn't want to be called based in Sharia. He didn't want to be matir three things. In any event, here just Gemara just says on the third thing that I'm Rabbi Rabbi Shmuel based in a cholkol Rabbi Gittin. The base in Rabbi Nasi argued them Gittin. In fact, they were not matir such a get. But Yochanan boy, Yochanan asked, "Locain Tania, didn't we learn Shem based in chol bata based in Chabei Acher Gadol Men Chacham Minyan?" The basin cannot negate the takon of a prior basin unless it's greater than that prior basin in knowledge and in minyan. Some say the number of chachamim in the basin. Some say that, if I recall correctly, the age of the members of the basin. In any event, there has to be a greater basin than the original basin. Ray Bestino Matir Mashasa Daniel Bechabroso, because so Rebbe is based in permit that which was forbidden by Daniel and his group. El Rabbi Yochanan Daite. So the where it says Rabbi Yochanan is is like his opinion. In other words, Rabbi Yochanan actually, even though he asked the question, his opinion was it actually was mutter for them to another know it, not because they're going to Chachma B'minyan, they were not, but rather the Rabbi Yochanan, B'Shem Rabbi Lezer ben Tzadok, Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Lezer, this it says on side merchant, but perhaps say Dimar. Rabbi Yochanan, that Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Lezer ben Tzadok, but Kuman Ishkol Kesesha Basin goes on Tzibor. I have a Masorah that any decree that the Basin made, Lokibur of a Tzibor Aleim, ain't a Xera. And the majority of the Tzibor is not, it was not Makabal that Xera, it's not about Xera. The Xera, I shouldn't say it's not about, the Xera is annulled. Badku matzu Xer Sheshem below Kiblu Rov Tzibor, and they went, they checked, and they found that the decree of oil was not accepted by the majority of the Tzibor. There's an amazing Reb Moshe on clapping and dancing on Shabbos, where he says that it doesn't necessarily have to be the original at the original basin at the time of the Takana, which ascertains that it can happen any time in history. It's a very fascinating idea. In other words, if at some point in history they check and they find, even though once upon a time the Zer was Mukubal, but later on it falls by the wayside and the observance wanes, so then also the Zer can fall off. And that's where Moshe uses that to explain why people clap and dance B'Zman Hazeh, because at some point it was clear that the Zera was not in the Skabel anymore, even it once was, not the clap and dance on Shabbos, and therefore once it's full, they go and they check. He says you don't need a base to go out and check. You have to just has to be somebody who can independently ascertain that the Xera no longer is being kept, and then the Xera falls by the wayside. It could be that's the case here as well. Could be time Daniel they did accept it, but later on, but Kumatsu, they found that no people were not keeping the Xera anymore, and therefore by default the Xera fell away. Yitzhak bar Shmuel bar Marsa, Nachs and Tzivin. Yitzhak bar Shmuel bar Marsa went down to the Tzivin. Ashkel Rabbi Simloi Hadromi. He found Rabbi Simloi from the south. Yosef Vidorish. And he was sitting expounding Rebbe Ubezino Hitiru Shemen. The Rebbe and his Basin were matir the oil of the oil of non-Jews. So I guess it went back and reported this in Bavel. Shmuel Kavil Loiv Achol. Shmuel started eating Hashem and Shalakum because this same Rabbi seemed like join me. Rav Lo Achol. Rav didn't eat the oil of non-Jews. Shmuel said Achol. We eat it. The locain, if you don't eat it, on a ksibalach zakin mamre. I'm going to say that you're a zakin mamre. You're a rebellious elder. You did this Rebbe is matir. You can't go against his psak and still be machmir on it against Rebbe. So Rav said to him, Adon Tamon, while I was in Eretz Yisrael, Ana Yada Man Irole. I know who complained against the Xera of Shemesh Lakum. Rabbi Sim Loya Dromi. Uh, uh, so the word Mau here is a little bit out of place. I wrote here in Sagamore, it could be that it's supposed to come after the words Marley. So, and it fits a little bit better. Because, but Rav is saying it was Rabbi Sim Loya Dromi. It wasn't Rebbe was martyred. So Marley Shmuel said back, Mau, what do you, so what? B'Shem Garmei? Was it his own name? Lo B'Shem Rebbe Bezdino? Wasn't the name of Rebbe and his based in? And Shmuel compelled Rav. He started pressuring him until he found out, until he finally, relented and ate Shemesh Lakum. Now, Gemara's going to come back to this, because till now, all assumption is that's Daniel Beis Dino. Right? We'll come back to it later on and see how it configures into the Yud Ches Dover. Okay, so says Gemara further in the meantime. Benoseim, their daughters. The Amr Abelazar said, "Shimon Komas Ksiv Lo Tischatein Bam." It says in 7 places, don't marry them. So it's Korban Ada, longest Korban Ada, which you'd see. B'Shimon Komas Ksiv Lo Tischatein Bam near the Hainu Hod Chsiv Parshas Kitisa. Lakas Minoisel V'Necha Parshas Chaim Lo Tischatein Bam Ksiv Lo Yakadesh V'Gomer Targamo Lo Yisa Ever Shivcha Ksiv Lo Tchei Kol Neshama Ksiv Lo Tichros Lem Eloheim Bris. All these are not necessarily specific psukim about marriage. They various psukim. V'hainu chasnus, the intent of psukim is to forbid marriage. See, b'shuv is chatem b'am. See, b'ezra is chatem b'ameito. The others, reishiva b'kros. So there's 7 places in the psukim. Loksi b'rak pam achas lo tischatem b'am. And so there are. It's not just one time not to marry them. It's many places not to marry them. So what are you saying? It's a Rabbanan. It seems it's a Doraisa. So the Gemara says, Shiva Avim, Shiva Lusa Shiva Amin. The Psukim themselves only ask the Shiva Amamin, and they other nations we mutter. Along came the rabbis and said you're not allowed to intermarry even with other nations as well. So it's interesting. The article points out that the Korban and Moshe both said on before when Nosein came up, they both gave something from the Bavli, the Korban Eidos, and that's how we interpreted at the time. The Nosein lesser biyasin afil biznus, even though it's not before in the Torah. They now it's not just in lotis chaten, it's also aser znus. And the Pnei Moshe, that's Korban Eidos. Pnei Moshe said they aser yichud of Bnos Hakum, but those the Korban Eidos Pnei Moshe back there were quoting the Bavli. Yerushalmi is different. Yerushalmi says, and I don't, it's a Pella and the Korban Eidos Pnei Moshe back there, which unfortunately I followed their pshat when we learned that sugya, but here the Yerushalmi says explicitly a different pshat that Benosein means that midoraisa intermarriage is only forbidden with Nali Bavli. Midoraisa intermarriage is only forbidden with Shiva Amamin, and Rabbana came and they asked intermarriage even with all the other nations of the non-Jewish, even with the other non-Jewish nations. Okay, that's one interpretation of what they did. Tana Rishul Unya said, "Lesar etz bebeitzo sehen." They answer their eggs. And it's like al tikra b'nosein ela beitzo sehen. In other words, they didn't answer their daughters; they answered their eggs, and because their daughters are the raisa. Intermarriage is also the raisa, no matter which nation. And this is they answer their eggs, lest they come to eat non-kosher eggs. Tana Rabbi Shmuel, bes bas hayano, the daughter of the Yano, the Yano that has no daughter. The beitza sanamis. This is a beitza of a certain type of egg. I think a Yano is an ostrich. So in any event, the Torah said explicitly assered eggs of non-Jewish birds, and by it's using solution bas hayano, and therefore the idea is that we're afraid that if you allow the eggs of non-Jews, so then you won't be able to distinguish, and they'll mix in non-kosher eggs, and therefore it's also they all eggs, even kosher eggs, and this so that he holds that that's doesn't say, not saying, but based on saying. I don't think that's in the Bible. Shichvas Zaron. Lochem Rabbi Achor, Rabbi China, B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan. Shichvas Zaro Shel Akum Tahira. The Shichvas Zaro of Akum uh, is is Tahor. So are you saying it's Tameh? So the Gemara explains the way the Pnei Moshe explains it, not the Korban. Shiv Shas Shichvas Zer. Let's say maybe below Meiraglim. But Shichvas Zer doesn't come out without also including urine, and the answer to the urine of non-Jews because of because of sometimes there's zovim. So therefore, since Yeshiva Shai Shichvas Zer says with two Meiraglim, she's arvim more about Zeu the Gazu since they're Geza and the Meiraglim shlakum because of Ziva, they gave a status of Ziva, so therefore they gave a status of Meiraglim Shel Zov. So there, the Meir Glaim Shel Zov is Metamate. The Meir Glaim Shakum, since they gave Akum the status of Zov, their Meir Glaim is Metame Mishum Ziva as well. And since Erev Shal Shichva Zer, let's say it's below Meir Glaim, it's not possible to have an emission without having urine involved, and urine is like urine Zov. So therefore, the Shichva Zer, they also answered as well. So even though theoretically the Shichva Zer Shal Akum should be Torah, they answered it on account of not because of Shech Bazer itself, but because of the Meir Glam which would be involved with it. V'halichos Baal Keri, and they made halachos of Baal Keri. Among the Rabbi Bob, Rach, Hashem Rab, Shona halachos v'eino Shona hagados. The as Pnei Moshe Shona halachos Baal Keri mutar lios Shona balachos. Shlo yishkach. He's allowed to learn halachos, not to forget them. V'eino Shona hagados mipnei shem moshchem es halev. Because they draw the heart, and you can't just chazan them briefly and tersely like halachas, and therefore it's too much involvement for Baal Keri. Perhaps also one could say that Agada requires a lot of Yerushalmi, and Baal Keri is not in status of Yerushalmi, so therefore they were going to not learn Agada. Time Shem Yosi Shana halachas ruglios. He can learn the halachas which are Raga b'fib, ones which he's accustomed to, ones which he's learned before. As long as he doesn't expand his Mishnah, in other words, he doesn't try and get deeply into to the reasons for it. Superficial learning is much of the about even the halachas he can learn. He should learn superficially and not in depth. Some say as koros. You should not mention the Shemos Hashem, which are written in the halachas which he's learning. Okay, normally when you're learning, you're allowed to say the Shem Hashem, even if you're learning Torah Sheba'al Peh, but he should avoid saying that. It's koros since it's about carrying. Hilchos Eretz Amim. So they also decree in Hilchos Dover the halachas of Tumas Chutz La'aretz. Lochen Rabbi Zir Bar Abuna B'Shem Rabbi Yerim Yosef Ben Yezer each day Rabbi Yosef Ben Yochanan each Yerushalayim goes to Tumas Eretz Amim. It's an older Gzeira. Yossi ben Yochanan, Yossi ben Yozer trade and Yossi ben Yochanan, Ishur's life were the ones who decreed Tuma on Eretz Amim and on Kli Schluchis. The Kli Schluchis, the rice are not Metame, Rabbanon and Metame them, since they're like metal, they can be melted and reformed. Rabbi Yonah Rabbi Yehuda ben Tabai, Yonah says that Rabbi Yehuda ben Tabai is one who goes on these things. Rabbi also earlier, Yossi Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Tabai, Shem Shed goes to Tuma Kli Matchos. They were going to Tuma on meadow of Kalim that you broke and then fixed. So normally, before that, if you broke a meadow Kali, it was broken and it lost its Tuma. But they were going to, since people would break them, fix them, wouldn't break them. They say they broke them, they fixed and fixed them, but they didn't really do it. Therefore, they decreed any metal keli, even if you broke it and should lose its tumah, if you fixed it, it gets its tumah. It gets its tumah back. Yerushalmi goes to Taras Yadayim. Yerushalmi goes there on that you need your Yadayim or tummy until you wash them. So all these things we see there were earlier gzeros, including tumas eretz ami. So how can you say that it was Yudches Dover? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yosef ben Shem said, "Kachos halacha biyadam." This was originally indeed the halacha. and they forgot it. From the Shneim and the later generations came, the generation Yudches Dovar, Biskimo Das Yushanim. And they came to the same conclusion. They're mechavein to the earlier generations, and they renewed the halacha. Lamelcha to tell us Shekol Dovar Shenoisim based in Nafshin Alem, anything which based in his most nefesh on. So here the Mesiras Nefesh was, of course, that was involved with that sword, and the potential either they killed or didn't kill, doesn't matter for this purpose, but they're Mesiras Nefesh, either literally or figuratively. Seifel can be them, they will eventually come to the proper MS, commotion, and Emar Moshe Messinai. And as it was said to Moshe Har Sinai, Lavdafka here, because obviously we're talking about the Rabbanans earlier. The Rabbanans the same principle. In other words, if you're Moshe Nefesh, even later generations can come to the same profound understandings and realizations as earlier generations. The Ba'asakai, the Maraymon, it's like Ramon said, Kilodavar Reku Mikem. The Torah is not something which is empty from you. Being Davar Reku, if it is empty, Mikem, it's your fault. Lama, why? Lama She'ain, why is that case? You're not toiling it properly. When because it's your life. When is it your life? In the time when you are toiling in it. So therefore, you have to toil in turn in order to get to MS, but then you get to MS even in Mechav to earlier generations. Now, coming back to earlier Gemara, so Shmuel Amar Lo Shelo Toshman Asrei. That was Ein Beis Yochol about the Divrei Beis Chavel and King God Min Chacham and Minyan. It's only things which are within the 18, only the Yud Ches Davar. Anything else, even the Beis and Kotak Min Vato. I recall correctly, the sheet is not brought in the Bavli. Hachutz Yud Ches Davar Yud Ches Vato. It's at the Yud Ches, even a Beis which is Kotak Min Vato. He's Sivun asked. Hari Shvi is Hari Chutz Yud Ches Davar. The Isser of Tosefes Shvius is it's outside Yuches Dover. Rabbi Yochanan asked, how could they be mabatalit? Rabbi Shem Rabbi Yochanan, as we know, Rabbi Kitzur Shem Rabbi Yochanan. Beisino Etir Beisir Shnei Prakim Rishonim. Rabbi Gamliel Beisino were mavatel. It's of the two Prakim Rishonim. This is as it brings down. This is to plow in a wheat field from Pesach Shvius Anan, and in a Stei Elon in a orchard from Shvuas Anan. Those are two prakim, Pesach and Shvuas. And then basically Tiru and Rabbi Yonasan Boy. Here it says before it says Rabbi Yochanan. Here it says Rabbi Yonasan. Either both of Rabbi Yonasan or both Rabbi Yochanan. Below Chain Tanya, then we learn she ain't based in Yochel about those bidin chaver ain't king gadol men of chachma v'minyan. And that's just that we asked the question elsewhere. I forget where that is offhand. Thank you. The article in the Moed Katan, it says that this is that the initial takana was made with the escape hatch that they could move out if necessary. But anyway, the point here is that's not the point. Here is the question. That's the question, and it was outside Yurches Dover. And yet it says that the ask question, based in cotton cannot be about the base in gadol. So Asay Vun Rabbi Yehuda b'Shem Shmuel say you're right. Shmuel said the opposite. Lo shon chutz to Yud Ches Davar. That which a basin which is greater, the takana of a basin which is prior to its time, is only things which are outside the Yud Ches Davar. Even if it's in the 12, the Yud Ches Davar, they can't be mavatal because they were koine ben avshul seim. Since again they had the Mesiras Nefesh, so therefore there's no canceling any Yud Ches Davar no matter what. So Ramana says it's counterintuitive. Let me start with the law in Yerushalmi Shabbos da elo hoevu ones bato. Since they're compelled to accept it, so therefore it should be much easier to be mavatal it because it's under duress. The more answer Ramana, no, it can't be. Nice try, but it can't be because it's when they answer Shemen. We started over talking about Shemen before, and it's within the Yud Ches Davar, and yet Rabbi Yonasan Makshile. Rabbi Yonasan asked about it. How could it be a bato? According to you, it was under onus, so there should be no problem being mevatel it. So obviously, that we don't say such as far that since under duress you can be mevatel it. The Ritbaz points out it's not explicit before in the Yerushalmi. He says that clearly the Gemara is learning that Yerushalmi is from Yud Ches Davar, yet before we said that Daniel was going around it. So he says, although it's not explicit in the Gemara, it's implicit that this was one of the things in which the Rishonim were goyes there, and they were not. It's not niskabel, and it was shchachua, I should say. They forgot it, and then the Achronim came and were mechaven. But when the Achronim came mechaven, so then even though initially it was Xerib Daniel, now it has the status of Yirches Davar. And therefore, since it was Chachua and their Moshe Nefesh, and they came up with it, so now it says Yurches Davar, and we see that Yurches Davar, there is you can't just be invited. The rest doesn't make a difference. The Ritbaz also points out that Shiz Yerushalmi is not like the Bavli, which says that Daniel Gazer Be'ir, and the Yurches Davar was Basadeh, but rather, again, like we said, Om Ashnim. So in any event, the Gemara answers that Rabbi Yacham, Mata B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, Shemen beat lo mevuto. That the Rabbi Yochanan argues that we understand and holds that Shemen Shalakum, they were mevatel. It was a good bittul, and that's sorry, Mother says, Rabbi Yochanan, when Rabbi Yochanan said Bitla Mavuto, he's saying because of my svara, because it was an onus, and therefore the Bitla was not a big deal. There's a Yurches Dover, and it's a Makab onus, so therefore it doesn't matter. Now, Rabbi Yochanan didn't necessarily hold that that was that's how Rabbi Mother explains Rabbi Yochanan. Before it was Mashma more, the Rabbi Yochanan held that it's because they checked and they saw the Xera was not in this Kabel. But in any event, the Ramona says, you asked me a question from Rabbi Yonason, who said, how can you battle it? That's I'm going like Rabbi Yochanan, who said there was no problem being battle it for whatever reason. According to Ramona, it seems because of Ones. According to, but it could be that rather that it's because, like we said before, they checked and they saw that it was not in this kabel. Okay, I think so. That will, even though we could go up to the Mishnah, but kind of long enough for today, and we're already on the Dalit, so we'll stop.